Number 1.
Emon disappeared from Micanopy, Florida sometime in 1988. At the time of his disappearance, he and his family were members of the House of Prayer for All People in Micanopy, Florida. It was a cult-type religious group that operated under a system of collectivism and Old Testament-style beliefs, including adhering to a kosher diet and wearing full-length robes and head coverings. All members had to change their names upon joining, and Emon's name was changed to Moses Harper. Emon was still his legal name, however. At its largest, the group comprised 24 members. The leader, Anna Young, was cruel to the other members, particularly after her husband died in 1988. She forced members to turn over all their savings, separated parents from their children, and frequently starved, humiliated, beat and tortured the members, especially children, for their sins. Each beating took 33 lashes with a whip, the same number Christ had received before the crucifixion. At one point, Anna ordered a cult member to abandon a 2-year-old Marcos cruise at a church in Puerto Rico because he was full of the devil. The toddler's ultimate fate is unknown. In 1992, she bathed a 12-year-old child in bleach, causing severe burns, then left her tied to a bed, which exacerbated her injuries. The victim had permanent scarring. After the girl's parents found her and took her to a hospital, Anna was convicted of child abuse. Before she could be sentenced, she went on the run with Joy, her youngest daughter, who was still a child at the time. The cult dissolved in her absence. In 2000, Anna was located in Alton, Illinois and sent to jail, where she served 6 months for the child abuse charge. After her release, she settled in Cobb County, Georgia, and kept a low profile for 15 years. In 2017, Joy accused her mother of having killed the toddler she knew only as Moses. She went to the police, who were able to identify the boy as Emon. He was about 2 years old at the time. Other former cult members supported Joy's story, stating that in 1988 or 1989, Anna had beaten and starved Emon over an extended time period until he was found dead inside her closet. His body has not been found. Witnesses report that Anna put it in a large straw hamper and burned the hamper in a fire. She told other cult members that she had given the child away to be raised by monks. Anna was charged with Emon's murder in December 2017. Investigators believe she may have killed other children as well. A photo of her is posted with this case summary. One man who was in the cult as a child said Anna forced other cult members to beat and torture his 2-year-old sister, who subsequently died. At the time, her death was classified as natural, but it is being reinvestigated. Anna's stepdaughter, Catherine Davidson, disappeared in 1973 at the age of 6 and was never found. Joy, who had not yet been born in 1973, told police she heard from her older sister that Anna bound and gagged Catherine and placed her in a closet in the family's home in Chicago. The other children heard scratching coming from the closet all night long, then the noises stopped. When Joy's sister looked in the closet, she saw her sister lying in a fetal position, dead. No one has been charged in Catherine or Marcos's disappearances, but they are being investigated. Anna is awaiting trial in Emon's presumed murder. Foul play is suspected in his case due to the circumstances involved.
Number 2.
Harris was last seen at Big Pine Key in the Florida Keys in Monroe County, Florida in the summer of 1981. She has never been heard from again. Foul play is suspected in her disappearance. On June 7, 1981, her children flew to Michigan to spend the summer with their father. Harris kept in regular touch with her loved ones by telephone. The last time her daughter spoke to her on the phone was on July 15. Harris was supposed to go to Michigan and pick up the children on August 15 so they could attend her sister's wedding in Illinois, but she never arrived. Her mother reported her missing after she missed the wedding. All of her belongings, including family photographs, were left behind. Harris is originally from Owasso, Michigan, and moved to Florida in 1980 after she lost her job in Michigan. At the time of her disappearance, she worked 2 jobs, one at the No Name Pub and one at the Sugarloaf Lounge, and lived with Gary Vincent Argenzio in a house on Tortuga Lane on Big Pine Key. The house had a reputation as a party house, and Harris had told a friend she feared there was going to be a drug bust there. Argenzio was considered a suspect in Harris's case. Approximately 1 week after she went missing, he disappeared as well, stealing a fishing boat and sailing to Mexico. Argenzio was arrested in Mexico in 1982, extradited to Florida, convicted of theft and sentenced to prison. He died in 1992. He was never charged in Harris's disappearance. An informant told police they believed Argenzio had murdered Harris and dumped her body in the ocean. This informant owned the house where they lived in 1981. The witness said he and a friend had gone to the residence and saw a hole in the wall there, with blood around it, and Argenzio stated he had driven Harris's head through the wall during an argument. The friend corroborated the informant's story. Harris's family and the family of Thomas Stump, who disappeared from Florida in 1995, believe their disappearances may be connected. Police have interviewed several of the same people with regards to both. Authorities have not conclusively established a link between the two cases, however. Both remain unsolved. Some agencies give the date of Harris's disappearance as August 1981.
Number 3.
Harrison was last seen at his home in the 3100 block of Milwaukee Street in West Melbourne, Florida on May 25, 2014. He went to bed at 9 p.m. His wife of 17 years woke up at 3 a.m. and the lights were on, but Harrison was gone. After going to bed, he had apparently gotten up again, redressed in the same clothes he'd worn the night before, put his dentures in, and left. He has never been heard from again. A police dog tracked his scent for 5 blocks before losing the trail. An extensive search turned up no sign of him. Although Harrison has Alzheimer's disease, he had never wandered away from home before. He was carrying his Florida driver's license and approximately $40 in cash, but no credit cards, at the time of his disappearance. Only one of his shoes disappeared with him, and he left his eyeglasses behind. He was born and raised in Red House, West Virginia, and he had previously lived in Indian River County, Florida for 20 years, and he may attempt to return to either of those places. His case remains unsolved.
Number 4.
Hawkins was last seen in Riverview, Florida on September 25, 2007. That day his work van broke down and, at 7:39 p.m., his mother picked him and a friend, Jason Smith, up from a parking lot near State Road 60 and Interstate 75. Hawkins took 3 bags, containing work equipment and clothes, out of his van and put them in his mother's car. Once she took him to her home, he asked to borrow his grandmother's orange 2002 Chevrolet Camaro. He said he would buy some parts and make repairs to his van, then return her car the next day. Hawkins' family never saw him again. According to Smith, Hawkins went to meet a preppy guy in Town End Country, Florida to buy cocaine for resale, and Smith never saw him after that. When Hawkins' family heard the story, they contacted police. They were unable to report Hawkins missing for 2 more days, however. In mid-2008, the case was removed from the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office Missing Persons database, and this fact wasn't discovered for 2 months. The Sheriff's Office said it had been a mistake and relisted Hawkins as an endangered missing person. Hawkins' grandmother's Camaro was found abandoned in the parking lot of a Lowe's store on Gibsonton Drive on October 31, over a month after he disappeared. The police returned it to his family. He left behind his own 1987 Nissan 300ZX, which he cherished. Authorities searched his home at the RV park, but they didn't find anything of interest. A neighbor reported seeing Smith removing items from Hawkins' RV and into a truck a few weeks after Hawkins disappeared. Smith was later imprisoned on drug charges. Hawkins has been in trouble with the law before. As a teenager, he was convicted of grand theft auto after he stole a BMW from someone he knew, drove it to another state and crashed it. He served time in prison and went through a period of probation. He cleaned up his life after the conviction, started a carpet installing business, and moved into Rice Creek RV Resort, where he was seen as a good and quiet neighbor. His case remains unsolved.
Number 5.
Helfrey was last seen leaving Peggy O'Neill's Irish Pub and Eatery in Palm Harbor, Florida on May 22, 2006. He had 2 jobs, one of which was managing the Thirsty Marlin seafood restaurant. He closed the restaurant at 12:30 a.m. on May 22 and joined his friends at the pub. At approximately 1:30 a.m., he left the pub and drove away in his blue-gray Mitsubishi Outlander hatchback with Florida license plates number G83 NID. He was supposed to meet a friend at his friend's nearby residence. Helfrey's friend says that while they spoke on the phone at 2 a.m., Helfrey never met him that night. He apparently never arrived at his own apartment on US 19 in Palm Harbor and has never been heard from again. His vehicle has never been located. Helfrey is a military veteran who served in Operation Desert Storm, and his loved ones stated he continued to lead a very structured, regimented life even after he left the military. His 2 daughters didn't live with him, but he visited them on a regular basis. His family described him as a hardworking, dependable person and a devoted parent, and they don't believe he would have left without telling anyone. Helfrey left behind his belongings, including his toothbrush, shaving kit, clothing and pet dog. There has been no activity on his bank accounts since his disappearance. The circumstances surrounding his disappearance are unclear.
Number 6.
Henry resided in New York City at the time of her disappearance. She had graduated from the John Jay College of Criminal Justice there and was employed in their enrollment office. On May 24, 2007, Henry flew to Miami, Florida with her teenage sister to attend a reggae concert. They stayed with their aunt. Henry was due to fly home on the afternoon of May 29 and start work again the next day. She was last seen leaving her aunt's Miami residence at 1 a.m. on May 29. She got into a dark gray four-door 1995 Acura Integra with Kendrick Lincoln Williams, and they left, supposedly to go to Club Peppers, a dance club in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. She has never been heard from again. A photograph of Williams is posted with this case summary. He stated he and Henry arrived safely at the club but became separated once they got there and he went home. Surveillance videos from the club show Henry did arrive that night. The last signal from Henry's cellular phone was at 4:13 a.m. on the day she disappeared and came from somewhere near Club Peppers. She checked her voicemail at that time. The phone has been turned off since then. In September 2007, investigators located and impounded Williams' Acura. He had sold it to another individual after Henry's disappearance. A large amount of Henry's blood was found inside the vehicle, particularly on the front passenger seat and seatbelt, and a bleach stain on the right front floorboard and under the front passenger seat. There was enough blood present to indicate a homicide. From the pattern of bloodstains, investigators believe Henry was struck or stabbed in her upper back, neck or head. In January 2008, Williams was arrested and charged with second-degree murder in Henry's case. He is awaiting trial. Williams led a transient lifestyle at the time of Henry's disappearance and reportedly stalked an ex-girlfriend who filed charges against him after he allegedly broke into her home. Henry is described as a very responsible individual who would not have left without warning. She majored in criminal justice and psychology in college and graduated with honors. She planned to go to law school. Although her body has not been recovered, foul play is suspected in her case due to the circumstances involved.
Number 7.
Hensley's family last heard from her in February 1973. They didn't realize she was missing until March 1974, and she wasn't officially reported missing for over 35 years. Her boyfriend, William Felix Vale Sr., who is addressed by his middle name, said they were in Key West, Florida, when Hensley decided to leave him and join an unidentified Australian couple who were sailing their boat around the world. Felix stated Hensley had burned all her identification and said she wanted to become a different person and forget everyone she knew before. In a letter to her parents, Felix said the Australians were named John and Vanessa. A year later, however, he claimed their names were Frank and Sally. Hensley has never been heard from again. She is a native of Bismarck, North Dakota, and she and Felix met in California and began seeing each other in 1970. They were reportedly involved with drugs. Photos of Felix are posted with this case summary. Felix's first wife, Mary Elizabeth Horton Vale, drowned in Louisiana in 1962. A photo of Mary is posted with this case summary. They had one son, named William Felix Vale Jr. and called Bill. Felix said Mary had fallen in the Calcasieu River while they were running trot lines at night, but Mary was afraid of water. That section of the river was unsuitable for trot lines, and authorities found the trot lines still inside Felix's tackle box. He was arrested for murder, held for 3 days and then released without charge, and the case was never put before a grand jury. Felix had $150,000 in life insurance on Mary, but only collected $10,000 from the insurance company because of the doubts about the manner of Mary's death. Over 50 years later, a pathologist examined the autopsy report and found evidence of foul play, including large bruises on Mary's neck and legs and a scarf in her mouth. The pathologist believes Mary was forcibly asphyxiated and possibly struck with an oar before her body went in the river. Bill, who was only 8 years old, went to the police in California in 1970 after his father started seeing Hensley. He told them his father kept drugs in the house and had forced him to use them, and that he'd heard him confess to Mary's murder. Felix was arrested for drug possession, contributing to the delinquency of a minor and child abuse. As a result of Bill's report, the child went to live with Mary's parents. Felix pleaded guilty to the drug charge and was sentenced to 6 months in jail. California authorities passed Bill's information on to the police in Mississippi, but they still found insufficient evidence to prosecute Felix for Mary's murder. Felix married 17-year-old Annette Craver Vale in 1983. Annette's mother, Mary Craver Rose, said her daughter and Felix fought constantly, and Annette planned to leave him, but they later reconciled. Annette's family last saw her in Sulphur, Louisiana on October 5, 1984. Felix told the neighbors she had gone to visit friends in Colorado. After Annette's mother reported her missing later that month, he told the police she'd taken a bus not to Colorado but to Mexico, saying she wanted to disappear. He stated she suffered from mental illness and had taken about $50,000 in cash with her when she left. The police didn't believe Felix's explanation of his wife's disappearance but found no evidence of foul play. In December 1984, he filed for divorce, citing irreconcilable differences and desertion. He gave all of Annette's belongings and clothing to charity. Rose was active in the search for Annette after her disappearance, contacting anyone who knew either Annette or Felix to ask if they had information, as well as hiring private detectives. She found out about Mary's death and Hensley's disappearance. Felix wrote Rose a letter accusing her of slandering him. He wrote Annette had emotional problems stemming from Rose's bad parenting, called both Annette a zero-image whore, and said he wouldn't reveal where she was even if he knew. In September 1985, almost a year after Annette's disappearance, Felix told her mother she had contacted him. He said Annette told him she was traveling with two men among the natives in the jungle and had had a baby. No one besides Felix has seen or heard from Annette since October 1984. The FBI began investigating Felix as a possible serial killer in 1993. It's statistically highly improbable that he would coincidentally have one wife and one girlfriend who disappeared and one wife who died under suspicious circumstances. They interviewed one of Felix's girlfriends from the 1980s and she said he was physically violent towards her and eventually she got a restraining order against him. The FBI closed the investigation the following year, however, without finding enough evidence to file charges. Felix and Mary's son Bill died of esophageal cancer in 2009 at the age of 46. Before his passing, he made a video statement of everything he claimed he'd heard his father say about Mary's alleged murder. One of Felix's neighbors from the 1960s said he had cursed his first wife and claimed he'd killed her because she was pregnant again. The investigations into Mary's death and Hensley and Annette's disappearances were reopened in 2012 after Jerry Mitchell, an investigative reporter for the Mississippi newspaper The Clarion Ledger, ran some articles on the case. Felix was living in Mississippi at the time. When Mitchell tried to interview him about Mary and the missing women, he suddenly left the area, leaving some of his belongings behind. In May 2013, Felix was arrested in Cumberland County, Texas, and charged again with murder in Mary's 1962 death. At his trial, his attorney argued Mary's death was an accident, but three former friends testified that Felix had confessed to murdering her, and two forensic pathologists said Mary's case was a homicide. In August 2016, nearly 54 years after Mary's death, Felix was convicted of her murder. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole, and his conviction was upheld in 2018. In an interview given with the KPLC TV news station, Felix claimed both Hensley and Annette were alive, and he knew where they were but wouldn't say where because they're in the Felix Vail Witness Protection Program. Foul play is suspected in Hensley's disappearance. Louisiana police currently investigate her case.